guys! I'm sorry that Movie Math is a day late, but yesterday was Mother's Day here in the United States, and I spent it with my mom. But here's today's episode. All right, so hello and welcome to this week's Movie Math, where Disney continues to try real hard to push Thunderbolts up the steep hill that is superhero fatigue. A lot of you are like, superhero fatigue isn't real, Grace. Well, then how do you explain these crappy box office numbers? I'm sure you have other explanations, but I think superhero fatigue is part of this stew. Also, tears from Hollywood. They add a little extra flavor. And also, speaking of Disney Marvel, having let down their fandom for several movies at this point. That seems to have indeed taken a toll. All week long, Disney was like, hey, it's not the Thunderbolts, it's the new Avengers, with many pundits saying, your movie doesn't have the numbers to back up an Avengers title. You should have either called it a new Avengers all along, or you shouldn't make Thunderbolts look bad by comparison to, although you're going to see what group Thunderbolts is in. Thunderbolts doesn't have a lot of great options from a business perspective. And then, late in the week, Disney even floated out the idea that they're thinking about it. They might hire Thunderbolts director Jake Schreier to direct their very first MCU X-Men movie. I found this headline very interesting. I mean, first of all, why would you just announce that you were talking to him, right? Why not? I mean, either you're going to sign him or you're not going to sign him. I mean, is this to make up, I've told you before that to try and get you to go and see a movie that's currently in theaters, they'll usually say they're going to make a sequel. They're like, oh, this is going to be big, get on now. But they can't announce a Thunderbolts 2 because that would potentially spoil what happens in Avengers Doomsday and Avengers Secret Wars. How many movies can Marvel ruin in the name of hype? They've already done it a little bit with the Thunderbolts and Fantastic Four, as we've discussed. But I have to say, maybe not announcing a Thunderbolts 2 is a spoiler in and of itself, because maybe the events of Doomsday and Secret Wars make it so that we can't have a Thunderbolts 2. Because wouldn't that be the movie that Jake Schreier would direct next for Marvel? Isn't that the one that makes the most sense? It could be a real headline. They could genuinely be talking to the dude. Because despite soft box office for Shang-Chi, although that movie was pandemic adjacent, Destin Daniel Cretton, he was going to direct Avengers Kang Dynasty. But when that fell through and a very nervous Marvel decided to go back to the Russo brothers, Destin Daniel Cretton, Sony picked him up for Spider-Man Brand New Day, which is quite the opportunity. That's an amazing recovery on Cretton's part. I think being able to deliver strong critic and audience scores is just as valuable as being able to deliver strong box office. Although ideally, you're supposed to be able to deliver all three. And I think box office at the end of the day is the most important to Hollywood because they need to make their money back, and they're not a nonprofit. But yes, I think critic scores and strong audience scores are very helpful here. And Cretton gets away with low box office because again, Shang-Chi came out close to the pandemic. But what's Jake Schreier's excuse for his low box office? Some of you are arguing that perhaps Thunderbolts' overseas box office is so low because the world is upset with Trump and therefore America and therefore Hollywood. But then how do you explain Minecraft passing 900 million worldwide? By the way, as long as you're here, hit that like and subscribe button so you never miss a video. In fact, I have 2 major reviews coming out this week. I'm not going to make the embargoes for either one of them because my schedule's crazy right now, but my Final Destination Bloodlines review will go up late Tuesday, and then my Mission Impossible, the embargo looks very early for Mission Impossible because it's debuting at Cannes, but my review for Mission Impossible should go up on Friday. So if you subscribe, you'll see those videos as soon as they drop. And also you'll catch Movie Math. Well, Movie Math is almost always on a Sunday. But if you're subscribed, you'll know what's up. All right, so look, I think Jake Schreier did a good job with Thunderbolts. I think he did a nice job. And like Bryan Singer, I could see him really leveling up with his follow-up movie in terms of his ability to direct VFX and action sequences. That's a skill. It takes a little bit of time to learn it. Usually they want you to go learn it on someone else's movie, but sometimes a franchise will teach you themselves. So he could, I've told you I thought Thunderbolts was a little small in scale, but that doesn't mean that Jake Schreier's next film won't be able to blow up in a major way, especially if he takes the note. But with amazing critic and audience scores, why can't Thunderbolts get off the ground? The truth is, that amazing critic and audience scores are the only thing that are holding this movie up and are spinning it out of being outrightly labeled a flop. Right now, everybody's kind of like, it seems like a flop, but people like the movie so much, and we like the characters in the movie so much. Do we really want to call it a flop? And that's where you kind of have that's where I think most people are right now. You're like, I don't want to call Yelena and Bob flops, but yet their box office numbers are so weak. And then also the movie has a more reasonable budget. I mean, it's not super reasonable, but it's better than Captain America 4's budget. I said that the movie, in my review, I said it reminded me of Shang-Chi and Black Widow 2, and it has excited the same fandom that got excited about Eternals. And what do you know? That's exactly where it is in terms of box office. You know, some of you wonder, how can they call the box office on Sunday when the final numbers don't come in till Monday? Well, there are patterns that exist. It's fascinating. Like, remember back in the day? I mean, I think to some degree, it's still the situation with Ryan Gosling. He always used to open around 11 million. But yeah, there are patterns. There are patterns that you can see. And I said, this feels like a Shang-Chi or a Black Widow 2, and that's where the box office is. It's also on par with Captain America 4, because even though Thunderbolts might have a much better second weekend hold, its domestic total it's still lagging. It's still with these movies. That's why I got to look at the whole picture. You know, I think you might look at Thunderbolts' second weekend drop and be like, that's not horrible. That's actually somewhat good. But then you look at the domestic total and you're like, you're just not going to get where you need to be. All these movies ended up in the 400 million range, except for Black Widow, which was a scooch under. But to be fair, also, again, that was truly a pandemic film, not just pandemic adjacent, because that released day and date on Disney+. But they're all in the same spot. And Thunderbolts, their break-even point, where it doesn't lose Disney money, is 450. And I think it's going to struggle to get to 450, to be honest with you. I've been saying that as Marvel launches new characters and teams, we need to give them a grace period, where we lower our expectations. But I was thinking more 600, 700 million worldwide totals. You know, that's where the Batman and Dune live, and those are new properties or relaunches. So in the 400s, that's pretty freaking bad. I mean, especially with superhero-sized budgets and the fandoms that those are supposed to have. And again, when the rebooted Batman and Dune can outmatch that, it's not good. And Wicked, by the way, that's new. That's a new property. That did better. This is bad. Would you hire Jake Schreier to direct X-Men? I think I'd hear his pitch and see if maybe he learned his lessons. I'm like, I like what you do, Jake, but are you savvy? Can you pivot, baby? That's what it takes to be a Hollywood machine. I'd see if he wants to do an X2 style glove. You know, interestingly, Bryan Singer had a similarly dark and edgy resume leading into his X-Men days. And Tom Cruise's current go-to guy, I recently rewatched The Usual Suspects. It actually doesn't hold up so well if you know the twist. But I had not remembered that Christopher McQuarrie had written that movie. And he was, in fact, Bryan Singer's writing partner early on, and did uncredited rewrites on the very first X-Men movie. McQuarrie hooks up with weird dudes. He teams up with weird dudes. But anyway, so for this upcoming MCU X-Men script, I would not only be interested in Jake Schreier, but only if he was a package deal with Beef creator and showrunner Lee Sung-jin, who did massive rewrites on Thunderbolts, also coming in and rewriting Michael Leslie's MCU X-Men script. How did Leslie get this gig, by the way? Look at this guy's resume. He should be immediately disqualified for Assassin's Creed alone. This is X-Men. Get away from my X-Men movie. Get away from it. Get your stink off of it. My goodness. Superhero fatigue is sobering, but bad creative decisions on behalf of the studios, that's what's staggering. But things can turn around. Just a couple of weeks ago, we were kicking Warner Brothers wondering if it was dead, but it's having an incredible run. My goodness, this is amazing. Zazzy's going around doing pimp walks, saying, look at HBO, it's the best it's ever been. And you're like, wow, Zazzy, you've earned that. You've earned that walk. It's incredible. I mean, Final Destination is up next. Let's see how that does. And by the way, as we've discussed, Final Destination has sacrificed its biggest IMAX screens to help Sinners out in an amazing display of team synergy. Like, wow. And just wait until you see how the White Lotus is doing over on the Nielsen charts. for the latest week, what's happening over there is truly amazing, and we'll get to that momentarily. But right now, we're talking Sinners. Look at these holds. My goodness, this is truly something special as well. Like Warner Brothers is like not only having a hot streak, they're like entering like mythology territory. Basically, a month out, the film is still going strong. And as we just said, it's about to get a boost with a week back on several large IMAX screens. Although, rumor has it, the week after that, right after that, it's going to go to digital, May 20th. Is that a bad idea, or is it going to keep the party going? I'm not sure. I think Sinners has already made so much money. I think maybe it is a good idea to just keep the party going. And even with a low overseas turnout, as you can see, Sinners is now way past its break-even point. And as one of the most successful horror films of all time, now it can set its sights on breaking through the gold ceiling of getting awards wins for a horror film. The only horror movie to ever actually win Best Picture is Silence of the Lambs, although 7 films overall have managed to get a nomination. Now, can Sinners become, this is an interesting question, can Sinners become too successful at the box office for award season? Will it pull a Barbie or a Wicked, right? Lots of nominations, but no wins, because voters feel with all that green, it doesn't need any gold. Even Avatar lost Best Picture to The Hurt Locker. That was ridiculous. It's a tough call. Sinners is making a lot of money at the box office, but it's not making that much money, right? I mean, although it's hard to tell. Silence of the Lambs, back in 1991, that was the #1 movie for 5 weeks in a row. Still won Best Picture. Titanic won a ton of Oscars. And even the recent Oppenheimer won, and that made almost $1 billion. But Barbie did help that movie seem like an underdog. Barbie doesn't get enough credit for how in general, but for how much it helped Oppenheimer. Because, you're like, oh, poor Oppenheimer. You're like, poor Oppenheimer, the thing made almost $1 billion. I'd say the last truly commercial film to win Best Picture outright without any help from anybody else. Some of you are like, dear Grace, Oppenheimer is genius. All right, and that was The Departed in 2006. And the last blockbuster to win was The Lord of the Rings, The Return of the King in 2003. After that, the Academy has pretty much largely moved away from mainstream filmmaking, which is, I think, also you can see a huge dip in their viewership as well. But they don't care. All right, so how would you, people who broadcast the Oscars care and the Academy cares, but I don't think Oscar voters, I don't know. I think it's a problem that nobody watches the Oscars, and I think they should consider maybe why that is. All right, so how would you spin Sinners to help it have the best awards chances possible? As I said last weekend, Hollywood did absolutely nothing. Well, Disney did a little something, which you're about to see, and it was sad. But anyway, Hollywood, for the most part, did absolutely nothing to program Mother's Day weekend. And as a result, the 3 new movies that they did release all performed quite poorly, although their audience scores are not bad. So you might be looking at some future solid performers on digital. There is some buzz about A24's Friendship, by the way, which opened in just 6 theaters and boasts an impressive per-theater average. But I don't know where A24 is going with this. I don't see this movie blowing up in theaters if and when it goes wide. I think everybody wanted to see Friendship, saw it this weekend, which is why it has such a strong per-theater average. Is it an awards play? I'm not seeing it, but I don't know. That is a nice per-theater average. But again, I'm not quite sure what A24 is going to do with it. It might, at the end of the day, be the most helpful with this movie's digital release, so we'll see what happens. And then, so what did Disney do? Well, some of you actually pointed this out to me. It got a little bit of traction on social media because people left to look for an opportunity to say bad things about Disney. And someone said, is this true? And it is true. Disney did try to capitalize on Mother's Day by putting Snow White back on another 1,000 screens. It had almost no screens. They put it back on an additional 1,000, but they didn't advertise it. And nobody really showed up. I mean, the movie's also pretty much largely rejected, but nobody was, if you put it on 1,000 screens, you don't tell anybody, what do you expect? But also, Snow White on Mother's Day, her mother's dead and her stepmother's trying to kill her. Plus, if you see this movie, you'll see for the most part, she spends the whole movie talking about her dad. So it's not really a Mother's Day movie. By the way, Snow White hits digital tomorrow. How's that for an advertisement? But it will be on digital tomorrow, although I think if anyone's still waiting to check this thing out, it's for the price point of no extra cost on Disney Plus, whenever that happens. Disney will not tell you because they want you to get it on digital. Are you still waiting to watch Snow White? And when and where do you plan to do that? You could at least scrub through it. It had some, it's a pretty movie. I don't know. I think at this point it's over. All right, as for the rest of the box office, I'm pretty impressed with The Accountant 2, itself showing amazing holds. The budget's too high for the movie that it is. It's almost impossible to make that back in theaters, because I do think that this is a very, a lot of times they release movies theatrically and they're like, we're not going to make too much money here, but it's got great advertisement for its digital release. And I think this is a textbook example of that strategy, because I'm waiting to watch it now. I missed it in theaters. I didn't get to review it. So now I'm like, oh, that's going to be sweet on digital. Boy, I can't wait for that. So I think, in fact, I think it'll do so well on digital, The Accountant 2, that I would consider doing The Accountant 3 if they can keep the budget the same and get Anna Kendrick to come back as they've already teased. Now let's head over to Nielsen for mid-April, and here's where we see those sexy White Lotus numbers. My goodness, look at this. This is the second week in a row. We've never seen this for Max. This is, White Lotus. Again, many people felt this was the worst show creatively, but this show has just exploded with its third season. And Walton Goggins, I didn't love SNL on Saturday night, but it had some really funny sketches. So I thought it was the Declaration of Independence and the Mother's Day brunch, I think, were my favorites. And also I liked the spider. There's a spider on you bit. I thought that was pretty funny. All right, so anyway, back to Walton Goggins, obviously, hosting SNL from the White Lotus. All right, so this is its second week, again, on topping the Nielsen overall chart. And this is the week after it finished. So, again, the Nielsen chart runs from Monday to Sunday. And HBO shows, of course, for the most part, debut Sunday night. So at the very, very end of the chart. So this was the whole week after. And I think not only are people obviously not watching White Lotus night of, for some, you can see that to some degree, but it must have had a huge binge bump where people were like, wow, let me get on this. So this is just incredible, especially when you consider that it's not even all of its viewership, with supposedly some people still watching it on HBO proper instead of the Max app. Does anyone still have HBO? I've even forgotten. I think it's like what, you like on cable, right? Yeah. Do you still use? I still have cable actually, because it's included in my my package deal with my internet. But yeah, I would think that more and more people are switching to the Max app, which is probably helping with these numbers. On that note, so Disney boasted 1.4 million subs last week, additional, for the first quarter of 2025. And everyone was like, And there were some people saying, well, maybe that's why they don't care that their shows never chart, because they're driving subscriber signups. Well, Max added 5.3 million subscribers during the same period, although it was largely driven by international subscribers. Disney didn't clarify where their new subscribers come from, so it could be the exact same situation. But still, that's what we're looking at. Now, Max is catching up to Disney Plus when it comes to subs, 122.3 million to 153.6. And Max actually is able to get shows that chart. They have 2 on the overall chart, as you can see. Not just White Lotus, but look at The Pit as it wraps up its first season. 15 episode seasons for that show. It's a thing of beauty. That thing is so not only so good from a creative perspective, but from a business perspective, The Pit is so fantastically constructed. Netflix, for comparison, has stopped reporting their subscriber numbers on a quarterly basis. But the last report they gave was like double, with 301 million subscribers worldwide. That's incredible. And just think, every single one of those subscribers pays the subscription fee every month. That's a lot of money. Ka-ching! All right, so back to Nielsen's overall chart, though. It's fantastic to see so many original shows here instead of the usual wall of acquired, rewarmed, old content, right? And the only acquired shows here are Grey's Anatomy, Bluey, and Family Guy. Although, technically, White Lotus is an acquired show because it's supposed to be an HBO show, although, again, Max is clearly finally rising, becoming something. And to be fair, Family Guy is airing new episodes after they air on Fox. Hulu's getting the new episodes a day later or something. Is Grey's Anatomy still on? I think it is. So I guess that technically helps too, but the back catalog is huge. That's kind of what's something with Nielsen. That's something you have to remember affects Nielsen. I'm sure White Lotus is even benefiting from its now back catalog of, 3 seasons in total. But it's very interesting. And I guess, as we said before, should Nielsen, like Netflix, separate into seasons? But I guess if the current season is driving the back catalog of the same show, it is also very valuable to the streaming service. All right. Also, you can see a strong mix, a healthy mix of streamers. It's not just a wall of Netflix either. Everyone's here except for Prime Video, which is usually here, which just means that Prime Video has a gap in their programming. Actually, there's an explanation for it, which you'll see in just a moment. Now, on the originals chart, still no Daredevil, but it's driving subs, I guess. It's ridiculous. This is with 8 episodes. This is the week before its season finale, and we'll see if maybe it gets a binge bump. If it can't even get on there with the finale next week, that's going to be really bad. With movies, looks like Viola Davis got the last laugh, or at least a chuckle, because these numbers aren't so great. But number one, she's number one. And on Prime Video, here's the programming gap. This movie did not hit as hard as Prime Video had hoped. Luckily, nobody seems to notice that Anthony Starr was in this movie. Anthony Starr's like, why are you telling people I'm in the movie? Well, here's why. I find it one of Hollywood's greatest current mysteries that Anthony Starr, who is such a delight as Homelander and so beloved and is a gif and meme machine, can't get other work. He was just on The Studio in a cameo in their Golden Globes episode just last week. And you know why he was on that show? Because Seth Rogen produces The Boys. Seth, give Anthony Starr more work, please. Over on Netflix's charts for just last week, that Tom Hardy movie, despite, again, apparently being awful, is still number one. You know, Tom Hardy, he's having a bit of a moment. He's having a comeback. Not only did the final, I think he'll be back, but the final Venom movie did pretty good. He's got this, which is doing good, even though apparently it's awful. And then also Mobland on Paramount Plus. Anyone watching Mobland? That's not only from Guy Ritchie, but get ready. This is fantastic. So not only is it from Guy Ritchie, but it's from someplace called 101 Studios. I'm like, what is 101 Studios? You know where I just saw it in the news? Paramount had a shareholder meeting and they were like, why don't you buy 101 Studios instead of just having a deal with them? And I was like, wow, is 101 Studios that valuable that the shareholders are like, buy it? What do they do? Well, I thought, it turns out that they're behind the Taylor Sheridan empire, but it's not Taylor Sheridan's company, interestingly enough. I would thought for sure he would be largely producing or entirely producing his own stuff, but no, he's working with this production company. And they're also behind The Agency. Are you an aspiring writer? Send your spec. Well, you need really an agent to send a spec to anybody, but you should hit up 101 Studios. They're like making some big moves over there. And Tom Hardy is just the latest star to get his star refurbished through them. That's amazing. I love it. We have a new player on the board to keep an eye on. 101 Studios. Then but we're talking about Netflix. Although some of their shows are now going on Netflix. Lioness, of course, has been expanding its audience on Netflix. So with shows, well, it's a soft debut for the 4 seasons. Again, number one is number one. And it's a nice feather in the cap of not just creator Tina Fey, but also Steve Carell, who's in a bit of a rut himself. Perhaps he should have his agent call up 101 Studios. You got a show for Steve? And then also, I'm very happy to see this Coleman Domingo, who has now been an awards darling for a while now, but needs more commercial hits. I think he'll also, of course, be helped by the upcoming Michael Jackson biopic where he plays Michael's father, Joe Jackson. But still, Netflix doesn't have a super hot show right now, not like Adolescence that they had a few weeks ago. And that, by the way, is still on this chart. Only 4 million views behind Stranger Things Season 4 on the all-time chart, which means I think Adolescence is going to pass it. That's incredible that Adolescence, with just 4 episodes, would surpass Stranger Things Season 4. Remember, these are counted, well, they're counted by views now, that's right. But Stranger Things Season 4, with, what was it, like 8 movies? That's incredible that Adolescence would pass that up. I wonder, and it's still tipped to be really hot for the Emmys. Why is being a successful show not hurt you at all and in fact kind of help you with the Emmys? But yet if you're a successful movie, that penalizes you with Oscar voters. Then on digital with Apple's charts, it makes me so happy that Warfare, look at it, at number 1. It never even got close to number 1 in theaters. I hope it finds an audience. Please watch Warfare. It's so good. Hey, Academy, this movie tanked in theaters. Vote for it. Then also you can see that Apple continues to do a lot of business with sales. They seem to have really found a sweet spot here, although it's kind of messing up our charts, although we can get a little from it. For instance, Lionsgate is clearly pushing this 4 John Wick movie collection for just $15 to promote The Ballerina, which is hitting theaters June 6th. So, I mean, I gotta say, I'm seeing John Wick. I'm seeing Yeah, she should have been, I think June Wick is too silly, but I don't know. I think there's better synergy. And by the way, in some of the most recent promotions for the ballerina, it looks like John Wick has a pretty big part in it. I hope they're not giving away his entire part, but we'll see. Although I have to say, it is making me a little more excited for the movie. All right, so then Paramount also, wow, here's a sale. 50 movies for $1 a piece. That's actually kind of fun. I like that a lot. And some of them are actually quite good too. It's not 50 pieces of junk. All right, and as the world welcomes a new pope, took over the entire news cycle late last week, Conclave, to this day, is still enjoying a surge in interest. And here's a fun report. It was said that the real-life cardinals themselves watched Conclave to refresh their memory and have a little fun, make it a little party. They're having sleepovers watching Conclave at the Vatican to familiarize themselves with the conclave process. Put that on the promotional material. I think that's fantastic. It's a wonderful movie. And if you still haven't seen Conclave at this point, I don't know what you're waiting for. As for this upcoming weekend, there's actually a decent amount of stuff coming out. So in theaters on Friday, as we discussed, Final Destination Bloodlines hits. And that was the second most watched horror trailer, at least in the first 24 hours, of all time, coming in behind it, also from Warner Brothers. And again, Sinners will return to some IMAX screens for 1 week before Lilo and Stitch and Mission Impossible take those IMAX screens over. Just Mission Impossible's taking them over, and Lilo and Stitch is getting almost 90% of the Dolby showtimes. All right, plus somehow The Weeknd has returned. I don't know how, after the debacle that was The Idol, he somehow talked himself into getting a movie and for Jenna Ortega to be in it. I can't believe she's in this for Hurry Up Tomorrow. We'll see how it does. Then on digital, Tuesday is big, again, with not just Snow White dropping, but Minecraft comes out. Minecraft, I'm very curious to see if it does just as well on digital and then down the line on Max as it has done in theaters. What a phenomenon. As well as the latest Bridget Jones movie, which beforehand was only available on Peacock. You'll be able to purchase it now if you'd like. Boy, you really don't want to subscribe to Peacock. It's cheaper to subscribe to Peacock for one month. And then also The Wedding Banquet remake will go on digital as well. Oh, and yay. All right, no streaming movies this week, but with shows, Tom Segura debuts a Netflix show on Tuesday, while on Thursday, Netflix also has season 4 of Love, Death, and Robots, as well as a new show called Bet about an elite boarding school obsessed with gambling. Max has Duster from J.J. Abrams starring Lost's Josh Holloway. Prime, J.J. Abrams was behind Lost as well. While Prime Video has Overcompensating, a new show on Prime Video, which means it's getting a binge drop. Prime Video has all new shows as a binge before going to weekly if the show gets additional seasons. I saw the trailer for this the other day, and I was impressed with how many celebrity cameos this show had lined up. And I suspect it could actually do quite well. That's Adam DeMarco, by the way, from White Lotus Season 2. It's been so long, I forgot his name. But I didn't forget his face. I was like, oh, I remember you. And this show was created by its star, social media celebrity Benito Skinner. Then finally on Friday, Murderbot is here. It drops its first few episodes on Apple TV. Apple does the Prime Video weekly thing of like 2 or 3 episodes up front, and then it goes to weekly. All these different strategies. But this one, I think this is an effective one. Now, this is based on the popular book series, and I got the screeners in advance, and I binged the heck out of them. Now, I want to warn you, it's a slow start. But the show actually ends up being amazing, and I would describe it as a more adult, LGBTQ-friendly, just like the books were, of Lost in Space. Remember that show? That was a great show, too. This has a similar vibe to me. And it's short, half-hour episodes with really good cliffhanger endings on each one. So I'm a little frustrated that you don't get to watch it as a binge. In fact, I would recommend that you wait to watch it a little bit, bank some episodes so that you can binge it, because it's a really, really good binge. I don't know. I wonder if let's see if people are talking about it. If people are talking about it, you're going to want to be in on the conversation. But otherwise, I think it might be something you wait to binge. But it's a really good show. Very, very good show. Again, first you're going to think it's not good. Like I did. You'd be like, weak. But again, it had an amazing cliffhanger ending on that first episode. So I was like, all right, let's see the rest of it. And then they got me. I was hooked. I really loved that show. I think I watched it. Again, I got screeners to binge. I think I watched Murderbot in 2 to 3 days, maybe. And that's just because life got in the way. It's funny, Murderbot binges content himself. And I was like, Murderbot has a problem. And I was like, am I Murderbot? with my screeners. It's very funny. All right, so that's this week's movie math. What have you been watching? What do you plan to watch? And how do you feel about Thunderbolts box office performance? How would you categorize it? And how do you categorize it publicly? And then how in your heart do you know that it's doing? All right, share those thoughts down below. Subscribe today. And of course, as always, you can check out some more videos right now.